Thank you very much, Ian, and to all the panelists. A great conversation on energy innovation and the breakthroughs ahead. We're going to transition now to a conversation with Toby Z. Rice, who is the CEO of EQT, one of the most major oil and gas producers, especially in Appalachia. Toby will be joined by Chris Barnard, president of American Conservation Coalition, on the subject of American energy exports. Of course, a critical pillar and goal of the energy dominance agenda. We're excited for them to discuss about what's ahead for energy exports. Please welcome Toby Z. Rice and Chris Barnard to the stage.
Alrighty, thank you, Isaiah. Toby, it's good to have you here. Looking forward to talking about American energy dominance. I think once upon a time in America, we had energy dependence, right? And then we kind of transitioned to energy independence, but now all of a sudden it's dominance. Like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, how old were you back in 2004?
7.
7, okay. So, but even like it was a scary time back then. Energy dependence was a very tough thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's really important to just reflect real quick what happened in this country, because you'll understand, why we're positioned to do some pretty amazing things in the future. Yeah, but going from energy dependent to being an energy powerhouse, we cracked the code on shale, and everything turned around for us. And now the U.S., a lot of people don't know, the U.S. is the energy powerhouse in the world stage. If you add up the oil and gas production in this country, put it on a BOE equivalent, we're producing over 30 million barrels a day of energy. It's absolutely unreal what's taking place here. And now this administration, really, we've always valued our energy independence. And, you see this administration is now challenging us to take our independence further. And they're saying we need to evolve our energy independence into energy dominance. And people are saying, well, what the heck is energy dominance? I'll tell you what energy dominance means to me. Energy dominance means there's really 5 things. Energy dominance means we protect and preserve America's energy advantage, ensuring that Americans continue to have access to some of the lowest energy bills in the world and the most reliable forms of energy. As an example of that, right now, natural gas prices internationally are over north of $15. In the U.S., they're $3, okay, natural gas prices. That's something we need to cherish and we need to protect. Number 2, energy dominance means we win the race for AI in the West. This is going to be an amazingly big challenge. The amount of power generation infrastructure we need to build is equivalent to building enough power generation that would power 20 New York cities. Just think about how big of a challenge that is. And we need to do that over the next 5 to 7 years. Huge challenge there. Number 3, energy dominance means we need to provide energy security to our allies. And I think these events that we're seeing unfold today show that global energy security is American energy security. And you look at what's happening with oil that's hitting Americans. While we have been successful in insulating Americans from the price shocks from natural gas prices, that's not the same with oil, and global energy security is our energy security. We need to continue to secure our allies. 4th aspect of energy dominance means that for the petro dictators in this world that are weaponizing energy, like what Russia has done with Europe, or the bad actors that have translated their energy sales into weapons, bombs, and tyranny, like what we've seen in Venezuela and in Iran, we're going to replace that influence with American influence and American energy. We think that's incredibly important to bring in a more peaceful, energy secure world. And 5th, and this is probably the most important thing that I think a lot of people in industry are deeply passionate about this, energy dominance means we dominate poverty around the world. And this is understanding that energy equals wealth, and more energy in this world means more wealth. And we have a real opportunity to make a significant difference, not only on the developed world, but the billions in this world that are living without enough access to energy and are living in poverty. And to end poverty, this is a challenge. We need to triple the amount of energy that's produced and consumed in this world. That's what we're talking about. Just keep that in mind as people are thinking about blocking a windmill or blocking a pipeline or shutting down a coal facility. We need all forms of energy if we want to tackle what I think is one of the biggest opportunities of our lifetime. And if we do that, the wealth that we're going to create, we're going to quintuple global GDP, increasing global GDP 5 times over, and a nice prize, we're going to end poverty around the world. So whether you care about energy, whether you care about business, or whether you care about making the world a better place, you should care about energy dominance and all the great things that energy can do.
Wow, I don't think I've heard a better definition of energy dominance. That was awesome. And you somehow managed to touch on all 6 of the questions I had prepared. So I got to figure out which direction to take this now. Let's go back to the first thing you mentioned, how the fracking boom really kind of helped turn America into an energy independent nation and kind of putting us on the track towards energy dominance. Yesterday, we had a panel with our mutual friend Clay Gaspar and Undersecretary Housefly over at Energy, and we talked about the public-private partnerships that helped unleash some of the innovation that launched the fracking revolution. Obviously, EQT has been at the forefront of that as well. Talk to me a little bit about kind of the history there, how you see that innovation having played out, and how you see that going forward.
Yeah, I think one thing, certainly there's been, research has certainly played a role in some of these technological breakthroughs, but I will tell you, I think we have better technology than NASA. You hear people talk about this. I mean, what we're doing now, for perspective, my first well ever drilled was 2,000 feet. We're running casing, and it took me 45 days to drill. A couple weeks ago, we drilled a 13,800 feet in less than 48 hours. Right now, we're currently, as we speak, we're running casing on one of the longest laterals drilled in this country, over 28,000 horizontal feet. Research is important, but this innovation is taking place really on the private side. And when I look and say, well, what was one of the driving factors behind America's, ascent to becoming an energy powerhouse? It was American grit. It was the American wildcatter. It was the American roughneck and American innovation and free markets.
Are you describing Mike Howard over there?
Yeah, that's right. He's right. And he's right. You want to see him in first and foremost. He's right there. And listen, the greatest thing is, not to say Mike Howard isn't special, but there's thousands of guys and girls like Mike Howard that are out there willing to take the risk and make the world a better place for their families, for their companies, for their communities, for their country. And those free markets being able to work has been the driving force. Now we have a situation where I believe that we've been so successful in this country at making energy affordable and making energy reliable. I think people take us for granted, and some have taken us for granted. Some have taken even further and started thinking they can live in a world without us. And that's led to some really tough political challenges that we face. And what's remarkable now is to know that this day, right now, we are producing more energy than we've ever produced in this country's history. But Americans' energy bills are up 40%. How the heck does that happen? Clearly, there's some blockade between energy getting out of the ground and energy getting to consumers. And that is a symptom of the political force that has overwhelmed market forces. And we've got ridiculous things that are shaping up, like where New England is going to be paying the highest natural gas prices in the world, higher than Tokyo, higher than Germany. And New England is sitting next to the largest gas field in the world, less than 300 miles away. They should be paying some of the lowest natural gas prices in the world. But it's just a sign of what the challenges we face. Political forces have overwhelmed market forces, and you want to get back to building and getting back to translating our independence into dominance. We need to get back to a place where market forces drive. And that's why permit reform is so incredibly important, to rebalance and allow market forces to ensure that the most affordable, most reliable, cleanest energy makes its way to the market.
Yeah, and this morning we had one of your former colleagues in the industry, Senator Alan Armstrong, here on a panel with Congressman Peters, a Democrat from California, talking exactly about that. And I love what you said about some of the silliness around just yanking permits for wind turbines or solar, because it's the exact thing that conservatives have been frustrated with the environmental community for a long time, where they're pulling Keystone Pipeline permits or LNG export pause. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, as well. So when you're thinking about permitting reform in this particular moment, and it's Republicans in power, and we're doing those things, a lot of Democrats don't really have trust in the process either. And so how do you think about that? Because I'm sure that when you're sitting here thinking, at some point there's going to be a mixed government again, or Democrats will be in power, you don't want them to yank your permits on the natural gas side. So talk to me a little bit about those permitting reform dynamics.
Yeah, I would say we're in a unique period of time where it's hard to get anything built in this country. And if you think it's hard to get a pipeline built, try building a transmission line. If you think it's hard to build an oil and gas location, try building a 5,000-acre solar facility or wind farm. So we're in a period of time where, all forms of energy, regardless of your preference, it's hard to get built. And so I think you're seeing a lot of people now. I mean, reporters are asking me the past couple of days, they're like, who's really going to oppose this? Who's going to benefit from this? And I say, well, Who's going to oppose it? I don't know. People that have been benefiting from the just endless litigation and red tape that's been introduced into the system. Who's going to benefit from this? The answer is everybody. And it's not like this is one of those situations where there's violent agreement happening in DC. Every politician I've met, Democrat or Republican, they all want the same things. They all want more affordable energy. They want more reliable energy. They all want cleaner energy. And so I think the fact that subsidies are off the table, that is, I think, has been used to maybe tilt the playing field one way or the other. And whether you're pushing for that or pushing against that, that's been very polarizing. I think now, because that's off, stakeholders are taking a tech neutral approach. And what we'd like to see is a principled approach that's based on an all of the above, enabling all of the above energy solutions to get built. Making sure that we give permit certainty so that we can minimize the endless litigation. We own a pipeline called Mountain Valley Pipeline. It was one of the most controversial pipelines built in this country. Originally proposed to be $3 billion, take 3 years to build. Took 8 years and over $8 billion. So we know firsthand the games that were played and where we need to close these loops. And Senator Alan Armstrong knows those better than anybody else. And really, I think that's something that everybody can benefit from. And why this matters, I think, when it comes back to our energy advantage, we need to build big things. And we want to talk about bringing back manufacturing, whether it's manufacturing intelligence or defense manufacturing. It's going to require a lot of energy. Thank goodness we have very affordable energy. But we are giving up our energy advantage if we can't get permit reform sorted out. Because what good is getting your energy at half price when it takes you 5 years longer to build and 5 times more costly to build that same power plant or facility here in the U.S. than it does around the world? So also, I'd ask people to think it's not just about the energy cost, but to realize the full potential of this, we need to make sure we have a regulatory environment that allows us to get the true value of the energy advantage that we've created here in this country.
Yeah, and for the people that, when they think about energy systems, they care about the emissions or environmental side of that. There's also a lot to gain, right? Like we were talking with Congressman Peters this morning about how a permitting reform deal would actually probably disproportionately benefit some of those sources that have been held back over the last few years. Like you said, a transmission line is more difficult to build than a pipeline. One of the things that I've appreciated about your kind of, I guess, nuanced comments in the space is when the Biden administration announced the LNG export pause, they cited 2 things. And one of the things that they cited was the emissions associated with like American LNG. But you've talked about how actually leaning into American LNG is not just good for national security, not just good for economic security, but there's also an emissions advantage because we do it cleaner and better here than anywhere else in the world. Talk to me a little bit about how you see that situation and how the U.S. can lead on that side of things as well.
Sure. U.S. LNG, I think, is one of the most exciting opportunities, not just in the U.S., around the world. We have a tremendous potential here. But to get to that, we need to address the public's concerns over the emissions that come along with U.S. LNG. Methane emissions to produce the LNG and transport it, and then the emissions when people consume the LNG, to the natural gas to make power or manufacture fertilizer, steel, cement, plastic. But just to frame up the size of this opportunity, when we ask the question, well, how can we be helpful in addressing the public's concerns over emissions in general, we looked at countries and said, well, what countries have done a great job in lowering emissions? And guess who the world leader in lowering emissions is? It's the United States. We've lowered emissions over 1 billion tons. What did the United States do? Well, 60% of the emission reductions came from one thing: replacing coal with natural gas. I've said that 1 million times over the last 5 years. I'll say it another million times if I'm given the opportunity over the last couple of years. We cannot say that enough. America's decarbonization is majority of it coming from natural gas. So then we ask the question, okay, if that's a winning solution, where's the biggest source of emissions on this planet? Well, over half of the emissions on this planet come from burning coal to generate electricity. Do we have a better solution? The answer is yes. Natural gas in the form of liquid natural gas, which we can export, could be a huge decarbonizing force for the world stage. How big could this be? Well, thanks to the shale revolution, we've discovered a lot of inventory that we have not yet developed. And we said, all right, how much affordable, reliable U.S. LNG can we create? And we put 2 constraints on that inventory. Said we can only use inventory that it makes sense for operators like EQT to get out of the ground with a $4 natural gas price. That means natural gas prices in America will still be affordable. That's the energy equivalent of 50 cents per gallon of gasoline. I think Americans would think that's an amazing deal. So a $4 natural gas price, and we could only grow to a peak that we can hold flat for over 30 years. There's the reliability part. And you put that two constraints of what we've discovered, the United States has the ability to create 60 BCF a day of natural gas surplus. And to put that into perspective, that's the energy equivalent of adding over 10 million barrels a day of clean energy to the world stage. That's adding a Saudi Arabia. What an energy security blanket for the world. And from a decarbonizing impact, that amount of natural gas put on the world stage to replace coal will have a decarbonizing impact of over 1.2 billion tons per annum. And that's not even counting the emissions reductions we'd get from reducing methane emissions from the coal mining process. So that's just where you start. But to get there, you need to show people that we need to address the concern over methane emissions. And this is something that, 3 years ago, Secretary Granholm, this was our big concern. I said, keep the bullseye on methane emissions because we're going to knock it out of the park. And that's exactly what we've done. At EQT, we have shown that we can address this. We are near zero methane emissions, reduce our methane emissions by over 90%. The things that we've done are available to others in industry, and they're taking aggressive action on that. Since 2015, we've seen a 47% reduction in methane emissions from this industry. And people say, okay, well, that's your industry. What about the full value chain? Organizations like One Future have shown just in the last year a 15% reduction in the full cycle value chain for methane emissions. And this is why methane emissions is important, because there are people in this world that say we need to shut down or shut down natural gas development because of the concerns with the methane emissions associated with producing that natural gas. Okay, well, just to give you some context here, our carbon footprint at EQT is 800,000 tons. And that includes our methane emissions. And people say, let's shut down operations because that emissions is too high. Well, understand this, that carbon footprint is going to support and produce an amount of natural gas when put on the world stage is going to have a decarbonizing impact of over 150 million tons. Okay, $800,000 ton cost for 150 million ton benefit. These are some of the great climate solutions we have, and they're proven. We've done it here in the United States. It's scalable. It's a Saudi Arabia amount of energy. And it's something that we're doing right now, and we're doing it rapidly. Remember, we exported hardly any LNG in 2016. And 10 years later, we are the world leading LNG exporter, over 20 BCF a day. And we see a pathway to get to 30 BCF a day. And we've got a 60 BCF a day surplus. And that's with a $4 gas price. If you wanted to say $5 natural gas and maybe a 60-cent equivalent, we're talking about an even greater amount of surplus we can create in this country.
And methane is not just emissions; it's also wasted energy, right? And that's the last thing you guys want. That's stuff you want to use to power our civilization and to increase or better human lives as well. I mentioned two things that Biden's DOE talked about when they're thinking about the LNG export pause. The first was the emissions thing. The second, and this might be a little bit more controversial, they mentioned the impact on prices within the U.S. when we're exporting LNG abroad, right? And you mentioned that the disparity between prices here being a lot lower than elsewhere around the world. How do you respond to criticism? It's kind of funny. I think there's like a little bit of a horseshoe theory here, right? Like the far left and the far right kind of agree on this, where they're like, oh no, we should keep that here for us. But obviously, I think that's a bit of a misunderstanding of how these markets work. But how do you respond to that criticism?
Yeah, I would say number one, track record. You can look at natural gas prices from 2016 when we started exporting LNG till today, and you will see there's no correlation between rising LNG exports and rising natural gas prices. We've been able to consistently keep it low. That's historical data, deep track record there, but you want to look for some anecdotes. Let's look at what's happening right now. As I mentioned, international natural gas prices, hit $19, $20 per million BTU. In the United States, they were $3. Okay, and gas prices internationally have gone up 50%. In the U.S., since this conflict started, they're down 10%. Okay, we have successfully insulated Americans from the geopolitical price shocks around the world on the natural gas front. Okay, I believe the surplus we've created here domestically has helped create that. And I'll give you another anecdote. Winter Storm Fern, a very extreme environment where we saw domestic natural gas prices because of this winter weather that we went through. This was in January, late January, early February. Natural gas prices in the U.S. rose to $7 per million BTU. And what we ended up seeing is we saw that the surplus LNG that we were exporting We backed off about 5 BCF a day of export capacity, kept that gas in the local market to help provide energy security to Americans that needed it. So, I mean, it's however you want to look at it. If you want to look at big data, long track record, you want to look at these anecdotes. And the most impressive thing, quite frankly, is what's happening today. That pretty much breaks the narrative, or should address the public's concerns that greater LNG exports is gonna impact prices. That's certainly not the case.
Cool. In the last 20 seconds or so we have, what are you most excited about right now?
I mean, this is the energy independence run, being on the front lines of the shale revolution. That was probably the most exciting time ever. And I've laid in bed, because right now we're in maintenance drilling. We're not really, we're harvesting and we're doing our jobs and keeping energy affordable and reliable and continuing to produce cleaner and cleaner energy. But a little bit, we're holding 1 million barrels a day flat energy equivalent with just 3 drilling rigs. We're sort of on cruise control in this industry. And I've always been laying awake at night and saying, man, I wish we could get back to that shale rush. That was an amazing time. Well, with this this call for energy dominance, to preserve the Americans' energy advantage, to win the AI race, to secure our allies and unleash U.S. LNG, to replace the petro dictators with more American influence, to provide energy security for the world and eliminate energy poverty and poverty, period. To triple the amount of energy that's produced in this world. There's never been a more exciting time to be in energy, and I'm excited about all of it. Domestically, internationally, it's never been more exciting time to be in energy.
Awesome. Toby, thank you for your leadership. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thanks, guys.